Have you ever felt a profound and frustrating disconnect in your own body? This is not the ache of a well-worked muscle or the fatigue of a long day, but something far more unsettling, a schism between what you believe your body is capable of and the treacherous reality that sometimes asserts itself without warning. You might possess legs that feel surprisingly strong, a testament to your commitment to staying active, legs capable of carrying you through a full day of errands, powering you up a flight of stairs, and even getting you out of a deep, comfortable armchair with what feels like relative ease and confidence. In these controlled, predictable moments, you feel a sense of command, a reassuring belief in your own physical integrity. Yet, in a single, unguarded instant, a moment as trivial as turning your head a little too quickly to greet a neighbor, stepping from the hard, predictable surface of pavement onto the soft, yielding cushion of a well-tended lawn, or reaching for a familiar cereal box on a high shelf in your own kitchen, that terrifying, heart-stopping lurch of imbalance strikes with the force of an ambush. It is a sudden, violent wave of unsteadiness, a visceral sensation of the world tilting on its axis that vanishes almost as quickly and mysteriously as it appears. But it invariably leaves behind a lasting, insidious chill of fear and a pervasive, corrosive doubt. This singular feeling, this fleeting moment of disequilibrium, is a master confidence thief. It operates in the shadows of your mind, quietly and persistently convincing you to second-guess the activities and movements you once cherished and performed without a second thought. It is the reason you might find yourself becoming hesitant to walk with your grandchildren across a park, your mind preoccupied not with their laughter, but with the uneven terrain ahead. It is the reason you might begin to map out every trip from the living room to the kitchen with the strategic precision of a military operation, noting the placement of furniture that can serve as a handhold, a safety net for a journey that once required no conscious thought at all. If this portrait of quiet anxiety and physical betrayal sounds painfully, intimately familiar, and if you have been diligently performing your squats, your lunges, and your leg lifts, wondering with growing frustration why you are not seeing the profound results in stability that you crave and frankly deserve, I need you to listen very closely. You are not failing in your efforts, and you are not doing anything fundamentally wrong. The widespread, deeply ingrained belief that balance is purely a matter of gross muscle strength is, at best, only half of a much more fascinating and empowering story. The other half, the part almost universally ignored by conventional exercise programs and even much of physical therapy, holds the master key to unlocking rapid, reliable, and truly lasting stability. The secret isn't located primarily in the brawn of your muscles. It's in the quality, the clarity, and the speed of the silent conversation happening every single millisecond between your brain and the hypersensitive soles of your feet. This creeping sense of instability is so pernicious because it attacks the very foundation of our autonomy, subtly eroding our trust in our own bodies, which is a cornerstone of personal freedom. The fear it instills is not an abstract anxiety. It is a concrete, moment-to-moment calculation of risk that begins to govern our lives in ways both large and small. It transforms the world from a place of opportunity and engagement into a landscape of potential hazards. A beautiful cobblestone street in a historic town is no longer a charming sight to be enjoyed, but a treacherous obstacle course to be navigated with trepidation. An invitation to a garden party brings not excitement, but a mental inventory of potential challenges. Soft grass, unseen divots, the lack of readily available handrails. This internal monologue of caution can become so constant that it operates just below the level of consciousness, a low-grade hum of apprehension that colors every decision. The physical reality of strong legs coexisting with poor balance creates a confusing and demoralizing paradox. You can objectively feel the power in your quadriceps as you stand up, yet that power seems to desert you in the face of a simple, dynamic movement. This is because the type of strength built by exercises like squats, the force-producing strength of large prime mover muscles, is fundamentally different from the type of strength required for balance. Balance relies on reactive strength, on the lightning-fast, coordinated firing of a vast network of tiny, deep stabilizing muscles in your feet, ankles, hips, and core. These are the muscles that make minute, almost imperceptible adjustments in fractions of a second to keep your center of gravity securely over your base of support. Conventional strength training, with its focus on linear, predictable movements, often fails to engage and train this intricate neuromuscular network. It is akin to building a powerful engine for a car, but completely neglecting the steering and suspension systems. The car can generate immense forward momentum, but it cannot safely navigate a sharp turn or a bumpy road. Similarly, your strong legs can provide the power to move, but without the finely tuned guidance system of your stabilizer network, you are left vulnerable to the slightest unexpected perturbation. The solution, therefore, does not lie in simply doing more of the same exercises with more weight or more repetitions. The solution lies in shifting our entire focus from the muscles as isolated power generators to the nervous system as the master controller, the intelligent, adaptable system that dictates how and when those muscles are used. It is in understanding and intentionally retraining this system that we can finally bridge the frustrating gap between feeling strong and feeling stable, reclaiming the effortless confidence that makes movement a joy rather than a source of fear. The Master Controller. Why your brain is the real secret. For years, perhaps even for decades, we have been handed well-meaning but fundamentally incomplete advice regarding the preservation of our balance and stability. We have been told by doctors, family members, and countless health articles to be more careful, a vague and unhelpful admonition that often translates into simply moving less and limiting our world. We have been advised to always hold on to handrails, to install grab bars, and to focus all our physical energy on building the major muscles in our legs, operating under the assumption that bigger, stronger muscles are the ultimate insurance policy against a fall. While none of this advice is necessarily wrong or malicious, indeed, caution and basic strength are important components of safety, it is like trying to fix a faulty radio broadcast by simply going out and buying bigger, more powerful speakers. You can invest in the most expensive, high-fidelity speakers on the market, but if the signal being sent from the broadcast tower is weak, staticky, and full of interference, the sound you hear will still be distorted and unreliable. The problem, you see, is not with the speakers, your leg muscles, which may be perfectly capable of producing the volume of force required. The core of the problem lies in the weak, staticky, and delayed signal coming from the broadcast tower, your brain and central nervous system. True, unshakable and reflexive stability comes not from building bigger speakers, but from cleaning up that signal, boosting its power, and improving the high-speed, two-way conversation between your mind and your body, particularly the sensory receptors in your feet and joints. Herein lies the beautiful and profoundly hopeful truth. Your brain possesses an incredible, lifelong capacity to change, adapt, forge new connections, and essentially rewire itself at any age. Scientists call this remarkable and well-documented ability neuroplasticity. It is the brain's inherent power to reorganize its own structure, functions, and connections in response to new experiences, learning, and sensory input. When you intentionally introduce your brain to a new challenge, particularly a novel movement pattern that it does not immediately recognize and cannot perform on autopilot, it is forcibly snapped out of its comfortable, energy-saving mode. It has to create newer, stronger, and demonstrably faster neural pathways to solve the new kinetic puzzle you have presented it with. Imagine for a moment that you have driven the exact same route to the local grocery store every single week for the past 20 years. You know every pothole, every traffic light timing, every landmark. You could probably complete the journey while your mind is a million miles away, a testament to your brain's incredible efficiency at automating familiar tasks. But the moment a construction detour forces you onto a series of unfamiliar side streets, everything changes. You become hyper-alert, your grip tightens on the steering wheel, you actively scan for new street signs, you notice buildings, different trees, and unfamiliar turns you have never seen before. You are fully, consciously engaged in the act of navigating. This is precisely the jolt, the neurological wake-up call, that we are going to give your internal balance system. The two unique exercises you are about to learn are designed less to build brute muscular strength and more to serve as that new road for your brain. They are a direct, potent, and targeted stimulus to your body's internal global positioning system, forcing it to pay attention, to process new information, and to update its internal maps in a way it likely has not had to in years. So please, I implore you, do not worry or become discouraged if you feel a bit wobbly, unsure, or even clumsy at first. That feeling is not a sign of weakness or failure. On the contrary, it is the unmistakable sign of success. It is the physical sensation of your brain actively working, learning, reorganizing, and drawing a brand new, more accurate, and more resilient map for your future movement. The concept of neuroplasticity fundamentally reframes our understanding of aging and physical decline. For a long time, the prevailing view was that the brain was a static organ, that after a certain point in early adulthood, its structure was largely fixed, and the neural connections we had were the ones we were stuck with, destined only to degrade over time. This deterministic view suggested that declining balance was an inevitable, non-negotiable consequence of getting older. However, decades of research have shattered this old paradigm, revealing the brain to be a dynamic, constantly changing ecosystem of neural networks. Every time we learn a new skill, whether it is a foreign language, a musical instrument, or a complex movement pattern, we are physically changing the structure of our brain. We are encouraging the growth of new dendritic spines, the strengthening of synaptic connections, and even the creation of entirely new neurons in certain brain regions. The static from our radio analogy, the interference in the signal between brain and body, is often a result of a lifestyle that lacks sufficient novel sensory and motor stimulation. We fall into routines. We walk on flat, predictable surfaces like pavement and indoor flooring. We wear heavily cushioned, supportive shoes that effectively blindfold the thousands of sensory nerves on the soles of our feet, depriving the brain of high-fidelity information about the ground beneath us. Over time, the neural pathways responsible for dynamic balance become underused, like an overgrown path in a forest. They don't disappear, but they become weak, slow, and inefficient. The brain, in its quest for efficiency, relies more and more heavily on the visual system to maintain stability, which works reasonably well until we are in a low-light situation or need to turn our head, at which point the system reveals its fragility. The exercises that follow are specifically engineered to be path-clearing activities for your nervous system. They are designed to be just challenging enough to force the brain off its comfortable, automated pathways and compel it to pay attention to the underused sensory streams coming from the inner ear and the body's proprioceptive network. The initial wobbliness is the feeling of your brain struggling to find and reactivate those old, overgrown trails. With each practice session, you are stomping down the weeds, clearing the fallen branches, and widening the path. The electrical signals begin to travel more quickly and with greater accuracy. The communication between the feet, the inner ear, and the brain becomes a crisp, clear, high-speed data exchange instead of a staticky, delayed message. This is why the feeling of being challenged is so critical. If an exercise feels easy and comfortable from the very beginning, it is likely not providing a sufficient neurological stimulus to induce significant neuroplastic change. It is the struggle, the wobble, the intense focus required to maintain your equilibrium for even a few seconds that acts as the catalyst for building a more robust, resilient, and reliable balance system from the inside out. The sensory wake-up call, marching in the dark, our first strange movement, the initial step on our journey to rewiring our internal stability system, may sound almost too simple to be truly effective, and perhaps, to some of you, it may even sound a little bizarre or unnecessarily risky. We are going to march in place, a movement familiar to almost everyone, but with one crucial, game-changing twist. We will be doing it with our eyes closed. Now, I can practically hear the alarm bells ringing in the minds of some of you, and the immediate reflexive thought might be, "March with my eyes closed? That sounds inherently dangerous and like a recipe for a fall." You are absolutely right to be cautious, and I want to commend that instinct, as your physical safety is our paramount and non-negotiable concern. That is precisely why we will approach this powerful exercise with a meticulously planned and unwavering safety protocol. Before you even consider closing your eyes, you must first position yourself within a protected, secure space. This is not a suggestion. It is a requirement for performing the exercise effectively and without risk. The ideal location is standing directly beside a long, stable kitchen counter that you can easily grasp. Another excellent option is next to a heavy and sturdy dining table, or even better, in a narrow hallway where you can easily reach out with either hand and touch both walls for immediate, unwavering support. The explicit goal here is to create a safety bubble, a zone where a safety net is within arm's reach at all times, allowing your brain to feel secure enough to let go of its fear and fully engage in the learning process. So, why are we deliberately undertaking an activity that feels so profoundly counterintuitive and initially destabilizing? The neuroscience behind this simple action is both elegant and incredibly powerful. Your brain, the master controller, maintains your body's balance by constantly and seamlessly integrating information from three key sensory systems. The first, and by far the most dominant system in most people, is your vision. It is estimated that as much as 70% of the raw sensory information your brain uses to keep you upright and oriented in space comes directly from what your eyes see. The horizontal and vertical lines of the room, the stable horizon, and the visual flow of objects as you move. The second critical component is your vestibular system, a sophisticated and intricate gyroscope located deep within your inner ear. This system, composed of fluid-filled canals and tiny crystals, senses head motion, acceleration, deceleration, and your body's relationship to the force of gravity, providing your brain with a constant sense of its own orientation. The third system, and the one that is most often neglected and undertrained in modern life, is proprioception. This is not a single organ, but a vast, distributed network of millions of tiny sensory receptors, called mechanoreceptors, which are embedded throughout your muscles, tendons, joints, and most critically for balance, are found in extraordinarily high density on the soles of your feet. This network constantly sends a torrent of high-speed signals to your brain, reporting on pressure, stretch, vibration, and the precise position of your body parts in space without you having to look. Here is the brilliant neurological hack we are exploiting. When you deliberately and safely close your eyes, you temporarily shut down that overachieving, dominant visual system. You are voluntarily cutting off the brain's primary and preferred source of stability information. This single action forces the other two systems, your vestibular gyroscope in the inner ear and the vast proprioceptive network throughout your body, to awaken from their relative slumber and work dramatically, urgently harder to keep you stable. It is, in effect, a controlled fire drill for your entire balance network. By practicing this drill in a completely safe and supportive environment, you are not just exercising muscles, you are sharpening and speeding up the lines of communication between these sensory systems and the processing centers in the brain, making you far more stable and infinitely less reliant on your vision for every little movement you make throughout your day. To begin this transformative exercise, find your designated safe space. Stand tall but relaxed, with your feet positioned comfortably about hip-width apart. Let your arms hang naturally at your sides, or rest one hand lightly on your support surface. First, with your eyes wide open, just start marching gently on the spot. Lift your knees to a comfortable, unforced height, focusing on the rhythm and the gentle, predictable shift of your weight from the ball of one foot to the other. Do this for about 20 seconds to establish a baseline rhythm and to allow your body to settle into the movement. Now, pause the marching and come to a still, standing position. Take a deep, calming breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth, releasing any tension in your shoulders or jaw. When you feel ready, gently close your eyes. For the first few moments, do nothing but stand still. Try to bring your full attention to the soles of your feet. You will likely feel a multitude of tiny, twitching adjustments as your feet and ankles work tirelessly to keep you centered. This is proprioception in action. Then, very slowly and with immense control, lift your right knee just an inch or two off the floor. Do not jerk it up. Imagine it floating upwards. Hold for a brief second, and then place it back down on the floor with equal control. Then, lift your left knee in the same slow, deliberate manner. Your only goal for the very first time you try this is to take 4 to 6 of these tiny, controlled steps without opening your eyes. It is 100% normal and to be fully expected that you will feel very wobbly, or that you might feel a sensation of drifting to one side or the other. This is not failure. I repeat, this is the feeling of your brain recalibrating its internal sensors in real time. Use the counter or wall for support as often as you need to. A light touch is all it takes to give your brain the extra bit of information it needs. Over several days and weeks of consistent practice, you can gradually work on building up the duration, aiming for 20 or 30 seconds of continuous, slow, eyes closed marching. This simple, seemingly minor exercise is profoundly powerful because it directly trains your body to be stable and confident precisely when your vision is compromised or unavailable, such as when you get up at night in a dark room, walk on an uneven and poorly lit path, or are momentarily distracted by something in your peripheral vision. You are building a more robust, multi-sensory balance system that doesn't crumble the moment the lights go out. The real-world stabilizer, the backward tandem walk. Fantastic work with that first sensory challenge. By practicing the eyes closed march, you have officially begun the essential and rewarding process of rewiring your body's internal balance system from the inside out, shifting the workload from an over-reliance on vision to a more integrated whole-body approach. Now that we have successfully woken up that dormant sensory network and primed the brain for learning, it is time to give it its next strange and remarkably powerful assignment. This second movement is called the tandem walk backwards, and in the world of rehabilitative and preventative exercise, it is widely considered to be one of the single most effective drills for building practical, functional, real-world stability. It is a true super exercise because it brilliantly and efficiently combines two potent balance-challenging concepts into one highly effective, coordinated movement. First, by walking in a tandem, or heel-to-toe pattern, as if on a balance beam or a tightrope, we dramatically narrow our base of support from side to side. This simple change in foot position immediately creates a much less stable environment for our body, forcing the deep, often neglected stabilizing muscles in our hips, like the gluteus medius, and our core to engage and work overtime to prevent us from swaying and losing our balance laterally. Second, the simple yet profoundly unnatural act of walking backward serves as a tremendous workout for the brain itself, specifically targeting a region at the back of the skull called the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the master coordinator for all of our smooth, controlled, and voluntary movements. It fine-tunes motor commands and compares the intended movement with the actual sensory feedback to make corrections on the fly. Because we have spent our entire lives walking forward, that movement is largely automated and requires very little conscious thought or cerebellar engagement. Moving backward, however, is a non-automated, novel task. It forces you to rely almost entirely on the proprioceptive feedback from the sensors in your feet, ankles, and leg joints to know where your foot is in space and how to place it securely, as you cannot see the target. This massive increase in reliance on proprioceptive data further sharpens that crucial mind-body connection we are working to enhance, making it faster, clearer, and more reliable. As this is a demonstrably more complex and challenging movement than the stationary march, our attention to the safety setup is absolutely critical and must be treated with the utmost seriousness. Please, only perform this exercise alongside a long, clear kitchen counter, a sturdy handrail, or a solid, uninterrupted wall that you can lightly touch with your fingertips at all times for guidance and support. It is imperative that you ensure the path directly behind you is a completely clear and unobstructed runway, at least 10 to 12 feet long. Before you begin, Do a physical check of the area, removing any area rugs, stray shoes, unsuspecting pets, or any other potential obstacles that could trip you up. Stand tall at one end of your counter or wall, with your side facing it. Place the hand nearest to the support surface lightly upon it. This is not a death grip to hold yourself up. Think of it as a listening post, your fingers gathering a little extra sensory information about your position in space. Pull your shoulders back and down, engage your abdominal muscles gently as if bracing for a light nudge, and fix your gaze straight ahead, looking down the length of the counter, not at your feet. Now, with deliberate, unhurried slowness, take a small step backward with the foot that is closest to the counter. The goal is to place the heel of that moving foot so that it very nearly touches, or lightly touches, the toes of your standing, stationary foot, maintaining that imaginary tightrope line. Then, bring your other foot back in the same manner, placing its heel directly behind the first. Your steps will be, and should be, small, tentative, and unhurried. The objective here is not speed or distance, but rather immaculate control and precision with each and every foot placement. Feel the muscles in your hips and ankles firing to keep you centered over that narrow line. Walk the full length of your counter, which might be anywhere from 5 to 8 tandem steps. When you reach the end, pause for a moment to gather yourself, turn around safely while holding on, and walk normally, forward, back to your starting position. That completes one set. In the beginning, aim to complete 2 or 3 carefully executed sets. For those who feel more confident and stable, after several weeks of consistent practice, you can introduce a powerful progression that further challenges your entire balance system. As you are performing the backward walk, slowly and smoothly turn your head to look to the side, away from the counter, and then bring your gaze forward again as you complete the step. This simple head turn adds a significant vestibular challenge into the mix, forcing your brain to integrate conflicting sensory information from your eyes, your inner ear, and your body's proprioceptors, building a truly rock-solid, adaptable sense of balance that will serve you in the unpredictable dynamism of daily life. Your path forward, embracing the wobble on your journey to stability. Incredible work today. You have successfully and courageously challenged your brain and your body with 2 of the most powerful, neurologically focused exercises for fundamentally improving balance and reclaiming your confidence in movement. Before we finish, let's take a moment to address a few common and extremely important questions, because understanding the process, the why behind the what, is just as critical to your long-term success as performing the movements themselves. The first question that often arises is, how often should I practice these exercises? The guiding principle here, especially when it comes to neurological retraining, is consistency over intensity. Your goal should be to practice for just a few minutes, perhaps 5 minutes in total, on 3 to 5 days per week. This approach of sending regular, gentle, and consistent signals to your brain is far more effective at convincing it to make lasting structural changes, to strengthen and myelinate those new neural pathways, than one long, grueling, and exhausting session performed only once a week. Think of it like learning a new language. Practicing vocabulary for 10 minutes every day will build fluency much faster and more effectively than cramming for 2 hours every Sunday. Your brain responds to frequency and repetition. It interprets these regular signals as an indication that this new skill is important and worthy of dedicating permanent resources to. This short, frequent practice is also more sustainable, easier to fit into your daily routine, and less likely to lead to discouragement or burnout. The second, and arguably most vital question, is this: I feel incredibly wobbly and unsteady when I try these, and I can barely do the eyes closed march for a few seconds. Am I doing it wrong, or am I just too far gone? Let me be as unequivocally clear as I possibly can be. No, you are absolutely not doing it wrong. In fact, that profound, wobbly, unsteady, and uncertain feeling is the ultimate confirmation that the exercise is working perfectly. That feeling is the physical sensation of your brain being momentarily confused, of it being forced off its comfortable autopilot setting and having to pay rapt attention to a flood of new sensory information. It is the feeling of your nervous system being actively challenged. In that precise moment of imbalance, where you feel the urge to grab for support or open your eyes, your brain is working its hardest, desperately trying to solve the new puzzle. It is in that struggle that it is forging the new, stronger, and faster neural pathways that will ultimately lead to unshakable stability. Therefore, I urge you to reframe your entire perspective on this sensation. Learn to embrace the wobble. See it not as a sign of failure or weakness, but as a sign of active learning and positive change. If you can only manage to take 2 steps backward in the tandem walk before needing to reset, that is your victory for the day. If you can only keep your eyes closed for 3 seconds while marching before you feel a significant drift, that is your starting line. Celebrate it, because that is the exact point where your journey to better balance truly begins. Change your internal monologue from, "Oh no, I'm losing my balance," which triggers fear and tension, to, "Ah, there it is. That's my brain learning something new," which fosters curiosity and perseverance. This mental shift is just as important as the physical practice itself. Finally, the practical question on everyone's mind: when will I start to feel tangible results in my everyday life? The answer is multi-layered. You may begin to notice very subtle but significant shifts in your overall confidence and your subconscious movement patterns in as little as 1 to 2 weeks of consistent practice. Perhaps you will suddenly realize that you walked across the living room in the dark without thinking about it, or you turned to grab something from the car's back seat without that familiar, momentary lurch. You might find yourself stepping off a curb with less hesitation or feeling more planted and solid when you are simply standing and talking to someone. These small, non-events are the first signs of success. More measurable improvements in your ability to perform the exercises themselves, being able to march with your eyes closed for a full 30 seconds, or performing the backward tandem walk with fluid grace, may take several weeks or even a couple of months to achieve. Be patient and, most importantly, be kind with yourself. You are carefully and methodically undoing years, perhaps decades, of old movement habits and sensory neglect. This is deep, foundational work, and it deserves time and gentle persistence. Remember, your balance is not a static quality that is set in stone by your age or your current condition. It is a dynamic and trainable skill. And just like any other skill, whether it is playing the piano or learning to paint, it can be sharpened, improved, and reclaimed with the right kind of dedicated, intelligent practice. You absolutely possess the power to retrain your brain, to rebuild your body's internal guidance system, and to take back the confidence that allows you to move through the world with freedom and joy, one strange but wonderful step at a time.